The new enhanced ACT is coming, and prep pros are warning their students to avoid these 3 mistakes. I'm going to give you the inside scoop. My name is Brooke. I've been coaching the ACT and the SAT for over 2 decades. I coach students to perfect scores on the ACT. I got a perfect score as an adult on the thing. We even have built an online ACT prep course. You can check that out at SupertutorTV.com. We're going to be making some changes in the next several months so that it is evergreen and it applies to the enhanced test, and it's not just locked into the current version of the paper test. FYI, we're still in a version that is very much focused on the paper test, but just giving you guys a heads up. We're going to be adapting it so that everything in there is relative to either version of the test. So let's dive into it. The enhanced ACT, if you haven't heard, is a new option from ACT that is starting to roll out this April of 2025 on national test dates. It's already rolling out in part at school day test dates, potentially, but it's rolling out for national test dates in April. And so if you are taking a national test date, you're going to start to have options. And here's the rundown of those options. Option number 1 is that you can choose whether you take the science section or don't take the science section. I know that's a question I'm getting from people. Should I omit it? Should I take it? Number 2, should you take it digitally, which is the only way you can omit that science section. But it also introduces a new test format where you get more time per question, but we've never really seen that test before. There is one practice test up from ACT right now that is in this new enhanced format. You can find it on ACT's website, and we'll put a link in the blog that goes with this video, so find that link in the description. But we really don't have a lot of information on it. So my first piece of advice is do not take the new test. If you can take the old test, do not be the guinea pig. I and many of my test professional friends have seen many students go through many iteration changes of tests, and our general consensus is do not be the guinea pig. Here is why. You will have curveballs on the test. You will have timing and inaccuracies to what you were practicing with. You're not going to have enough practice material rolling into this test, at least not in April, to really know what's on it, to have practiced it many, many times in that format with the pacing. And pacing has always been one of the hardest things on the ACT, and we're not 100% sure how that's all going to clock out with this new version. One of the principles of test prep, if you can prep for a test, is that the more practice you have, the more prepared you're going to be and the better you can do on test day. You can't prepare for something if you don't have materials to actually practice for it. So don't be the guinea pig. If you have a choice right now from April until July, the ACT is giving students in certain areas a choice. You can take it on a computer, and that will be the enhanced ACT. That will also give you the option to make the science optional. I know a lot of students are like, oh, I can skip the science, so cool. I'm going to get to that in a minute, but we don't recommend that you do that, because you will be a guinea pig. And this is usually what happens with scores when people are guinea pigs. Their scores can go way down and be inconsistent, and it's just a little bit dangerous, okay? So if you're going through prep, if you're going to do a lot of work to try to get a great score, do what's consistent, prep with what you know. Okay, something is going to happen in September, and that is that everyone will have to take the enhanced ACT on national test dates. So if you are taking the ACT September of next year or beyond, because those are the dates that make sense for you and what age you are, etc., the next piece of advice is once that new enhanced ACT rolls out, my test prep friends and I all advise, and I know it's annoying because you guys love computers, to take it on paper. Why should you take it on paper? Well, there have been studies that have shown that students retain more when they read on paper. We find that most of our students, when you introduce a computer, there tends to be more variance in scores. I know for a fact I had a lot of international students who were forced to take the ACT on a computer. I had reading scores that were up and down like crazy because it is hard to read and annotate on a screen. The retention is just challenging. With math questions, you don't have to rewrite the math questions. It saves time when you're executing on things. And so if you can do it right on the page, if you can draw on the drawing, it's going to save you time. It's easier. I know you are digital humans who live in this digital age and love digital things. But from our experience as test prep professionals who have seen people go through paper versus digital, if you have a paper option, that's one of the great reasons to take the ACT over the SAT. Does the SAT have some advantages? Sure, but everybody's taking it on a computer. The ACT is, we're not 100% sure, but potentially scaling material, whether you take it on a computer or whether you take it on paper, potentially the same. We're not 100% sure. And that could just put you at an inconvenience disadvantage. If you can take it on paper, we really recommend that you take it on paper and do not ditch the science section. Most colleges and universities have not even come up with a plan with how they're going to deal with this no science ACT. While it's true that there's a lot of test optional colleges, unless you're doing really abominably on the science section and you're applying to colleges that are ranked 50 and below and nothing competitive, maybe in that case you could ditch the science. But for most colleges and universities who haven't decided yet, you shouldn't ditch the science because there might be a school where you want to submit it. So that's kind of our take on the science section. The final tip is if you're going to take the new test, and obviously by next September you're going to have to, but please take the paper one, is do not only practice with the old format if you're taking the new. Another mistake that a lot of self-preppers make when they're prepping for a test during a transition is they'll listen to the ACT, and ACT says, oh, all the underlying questions are pretty much the same as all the stuff that we've always done, so don't worry about it, you can just use all the old prep materials. Well, it is true that the types of questions are staying consistent. The frequency of questions is going to change, meaning that there are going to be more English questions with stems that are asking rhetorical strategy versus easy peasy verb questions, right? From what I've heard from ACT. They're going to be changing the formula of how many of each type, and they're probably going to be increasing the number of challenging questions so that they can differentiate between students at the top of the scale while giving you more time per question, right? One of the biggest challenges of the ACT right now is that it is a fast test. It's hard to get it all done in the time that they allot. So once we get to this enhanced ACT, you're going to have more time per question, and that's going to be an asset, but they got to make up for it somehow. So we're going to see more difficult questions. But what I will say is you want to practice with as much in the format of the exact test with the pacing, with all of that stuff. What do we have again? We only have one test right now, but it's early 2025. By May, ACT will be releasing a book which is full of enhanced ACTs. So that book will give you the tool you need to then approach the enhanced ACT. So that's a must purchase for almost every test taker because it's going to have the only real official test. And the rest of us who write material, like I have 2 ACT math books, we're playing catch up to try to see where are the balance changes, what are the areas that are going to become more important, right? And how is ACT going to make things challenging? So don't practice only with old format materials if you're taking the new. It's a mistake that I see a lot of self-preppers make. They don't pay attention to exactly all the nuance in these. They read what ACT said and they shrug their shoulders and they go, okay, I can just use old materials, which is true for drill books. If you're looking at like independent tutor books that are drilling down skills, all those skills are going to be on the test. But when you're looking at practice tests, you want to practice with those new ones that are available. And obviously you might need to supplement with the old ones because you're going to run out, which is fine. But just make sure you use all the new stuff that's available. Cool? Awesome. I hope you guys liked this video and found it helpful. If so, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to our channel if you haven't yet. We're gonna have lots more videos on the enhanced ACT as new changes begin to roll out. We also have our online course for the ACT as well as private tutors who can walk you through this if you want support. SupertutorTV.com. Find our Instagram and TikTok, and I'll see you guys soon.